Project Utopia. What would be the best turn-based strategy video game, the ultimate wargame? Hello YouTube friends. Here with a new video. What would be the ideal strategy wargame, according to my point of view, with my vision of things? I have played many turn-based wargames in my life, especially the 5-star General series from the SSI company. Starting with the excellent Panzer General, both 1 and 2, and my favorite, Panzer General 3D Scorched Earth. I also played Fantasy General, with a theme based on mythology, like Dungeons and Dragons and so on. For me, in my opinion, it is the best, instead of war games based on bloody wars that occurred in real history. To have a wargame based on fantasy, instead of the Second World War, since it is very overused, touched upon many times in so many products. Of all the wargames I played, of People's General, what I liked was the attachments system, in which you could add up to 2 attachments to each unit. So for example, a horse increased vision by +1, a small truck added +2 supplies, an anti-aircraft increased the air defense of your own unit by +2. A helicopter increased vision by +1 and attack by +2. A forward observer gave a +4 to artillery shots, using that unit as a lookout, pivot point, etc. There was a game called Front Lines, with a Panzer General theme, but programmed by another company. And here you could modify the terrain, building bridges, minefields, traps, etc. Now you could add the destruction of bridges, to slow down the enemy. The construction of roads, to improve logistics. The construction of air bases, for aviation. The construction of forts to garrison the troops hiding there. Supply forts, to improve logistics, etc. The unit that could do all this would have the rank of engineer, sapper, or similar, and only with this status could they do things like that. That is, not any unit could build just like that. It has to have this special status of builder. There was a strategy game called Ascendancy, from 1995, it was set in space. The thing is that to develop technology, there was a tree of options, one chose a branch, and when researching, it gave rise to the creation of other branches, and so on. Also in the original Fantasy from 1996, one had to choose how much gold to allocate to research for the creation of new units. Now a new system could be created, combining the 2 previous ones, something like a combined technology tree. With how many credits are distributed for research. There was the game Pacific General, which had an encyclopedia, where all the types of units that were used, their photos and other technical details and histories. Here in this new game, something similar could be done, although translated into mythology, of course. Obviously it would be unreal, but this historical background could be useful, and give more beauty to the game. In Panzer General 2, from 1997, if one occupied a city, one received a certain amount of credits, money. If it cancelled the movement, going back, the credit remained the same. The city was with the previous flag, but it could be conquered again, increasing the credit, and so the process was repeated countless times, increasing the credit. I don't know if this was a bug in the program, or if it was done on purpose. In any case, it was great to increase the resources, even in this way. Then there was another game, I think it was the People's General, in which if a unit was kept inside a city, hexagon city, town, etc., the credit to the general, the player, was also increased, another way to increase the credit. But my favorite, of all this wargame engine, in my opinion, the best of all is Panzer General 3D Scorched Earth. It has a pretty excellent game system, with actions to be performed by each unit. Currently, Fantasy General 2 appeared, it came out in 2019, but it has a lot of role-playing and little strategy. Time is wasted clicking to activate unit skills, and it has almost no strategic component. I understand that units have to evolve, fight and learn, but if it takes time clicking to do who knows what, one gets bored. On the other hand, with a tactical strategic approach, straight to the action, seeking dominance of the terrain, with conquest. There is Warcraft, a real-time strategy game or RTS, 1 and 2 were pure strategy, many units, to move around the field in battle. Now for Warcraft 3, the strategy component was reduced, giving way to the role-playing component, looking for items for the characters, etc. In other words, to create the ideal wargame, which has a lot of strategy and very little role-playing. With large maps, and in fact of all sizes, that can be used between 30, 40 units per side. And the map of about 100 hexagons on each side, with 80 hexagons as a minimum, and up to 100 hexagons on each side as a maximum. With each unit well defined, for example. What I don't like about Fantasy General 2 is that a lot of little guys make up a unit, and it kind of confuses one visually. If it were like chess, where a piece occupies a square, without giving rise to confusion, that is to say a character would represent 100 in real life. But the basic thing would be to create a wargame in which the strategic component is much greater than the role component. Remove the errors, and horrors, of other wargames like the Fantasy General series, correcting what is visually wrong. For example, that a creature on a hexagon would represent 100 troops in real life. Something like chess pieces, where one occupies a single square. In Fantasy General 2 several characters occupy a hexagon, representing a single unit, but visually this sometimes leads to confusion. In short, it should be a lot of strategy, with control of the terrain, something very tactical. Some points to highlight of what would be the ideal wargame video game equal. Asterisk the hexagon system is the best, representing different types of terrain. Plains, forests, mountains, hills, mountains, towns, citadels, swamps, jungles, forests, roads, ruins, caves, rivers, airports, etc. The maps have to be in 3D, copying the system of the Panzer General 3D Scorched Earth. The citadels or towns of importance. The entire deployment of troops would begin in one of the corners of the map, having to expand diagonally to the other side, where the enemy's headquarters would be, thus expanding across the entire stage. Very different from what was Panzer General 1, in which, rectangular scenario, the barracks appeared on one side, and advancing across the map to the opposite side. And this of appearing in the corners, is well taken from Panzer General 3, which was like that, giving free rein to expand across the entire map. The area of contact, shock between the units was quite wide. The units would be based on fantasy and mythology, with preference to orcs, elves, skeletons, dragons, centaurs, minotaurs, etc. The mechanics would be similar to the Panzer General engine, only using mythological characters. The gunpowder, being unknown, so the units would use ancient weapons. Swords and shields, bows and arrows, catapults, ballistas, magic weapons, etc. The units would be only one per hexagon, although they would represent 100 troops in real life. And the hexagon, which has 6 sides, would have a round circle surrounding the unit. That is, it would be the unit in the center, and this round circle surrounding it, and beyond, would be the limits of the hexagon. And this circle would be colored green, the unit is 100% healthy; yellow, the unit would be 50% damaged; and red, it would be 10%, and on the verge of death. The map, hexagonal, would be about 100 hexagons wide, on the x-axis, by about 80 hexagons high, on the y-axis. There would be 15 total turns, meaning that after this time, there would be a penalty in points, or the loss of the battle. The map, standard in these measurements of 100 x 80. There can be between 30 and 40 units per side, which is more than enough to deploy across the entire map itself. That there is a scenario editor, to be able to create new maps. And that these can be incorporated into the main campaign. 1. Creating a new map from scratch, would assign it a numerical value, and the system, when creating the campaign, would incorporate the new maps. Thus, for example, a mountainous region would have a certain numerical value, and the user, when creating a map with many mountains, would assign it a number. And there would be a kind of database of maps, so a specific number would be given to each map created by the users. That is, there is a fictitious continent, where all the campaigns take place. Users, through the internet, and on their own computers, would use these editors to create new maps, to further embellish the game. They would send everything to this server of the game creators, who would assign it a numerical code, to be shared by everyone. And this numerical code would be used to incorporate the new map into some campaign, to choose from among several scenarios, etc. Just like in chess, where there is the king, here there would also have to be a special unit, which would represent the general of the army. Its loss would mean the loss of the game. Some main considerations. There must be a map editor, to create new ones. And also a campaign editor, to link maps, creating a new campaign. Regarding a unit editor, it would have to be discussed among the programmers. Since new models would also have to be incorporated to differentiate them from the one that was taken as a base. But it could be done. The action stars are earned in the campaign, depending on whether the scenario is completed, on time, with time, or after time has elapsed, the worst option. Also by conquering key hexagons, such as citadels, fortresses, castles, villages, caves, etc. Not only do they grant stars, but they can also grant extra units. As occurred with the original Fantasy General, in which by liberating a citadel, you gained the favor of the population that joined the general, the player, in his crusade. The core of the army would be between 30 and 40 units. On a hexagonal map 100 wide by 80 high, it seems that 40 units would be enough, falling short. But since each unit can perform several actions at once, even moving around without enemies nearby and going by road, it seems that 40 units per army corps would be more than fine. The maps would be a drawing like in People's General, where the map was in 2 dimensions, although the units were in 3D. Or else, the maps would be in 3D, like in Panzer General 3D Scorched Earth. And it wouldn't be necessary for the camera to move around, just having a 3D isometric view would be enough. It seems much more expensive to have to recreate maps in 3D. This would have to be evaluated by the programmers. But visually speaking and in terms of gameplay, the best are the 3D maps. I know this because I played the Panzer General 3D Scorched Earth scenarios until I was tired. Although the game programmers would have the last word. It is important that the maps are large, as in this example of 100 hexagons long, on the x-axis, by 80 hexagons high, on the y-axis. With about 40 units per side, with 80 or more in total, deployed throughout the map. And with each particular unit being able to perform several tasks per turn, such as moving, attacking, entrenching, counter-attacking, and other actions. With about 15 turns per scenario. At first glance, it gives the impression that the number of turns would be enough to deploy all of the units from one end of the map to the other. Since the maps are the same size, a standard would be created, which would allow users to recreate other maps, to make the game even bigger. Technical descriptions of how this ideal wargame should be equal. The terrain, the hexagons that make up the map, equal. Road equal the best hexagon of all, allows free transit. Plain equal a plain. Town equal a town, construction of houses, can grant extra points according to its importance. Citadel equal more important than the town. Fortress equal a walled citadel, with more defense points for the unit that is positioned on top. Temples/towers equal they are still like towns, but granting better prizes for whoever occupies them. Bridge equal a road that crosses a river. Forest equal all trees in a wild terrain. Jungle equal denser than the forest, and dangerous too. Jungle equal a tropical forest. Swamp equal a flooded forest, very abrasive terrain. Mount equal a small elevation of the terrain. Hill equal a medium elevation of the terrain. Cliff equal a hill that is slanted on one side, but that allows the ascent on one of its faces, and the other faces are with high cliffs. Mountain equal a great elevation of the terrain. Abyss equal impassable by land, but yes by air. Volcano equal impassable, both by land and by air. River equal a water path, divided into 3 states, without depth, passable, medium depth, a bridge can be built, high depth, it cannot be passed, it cannot be bridged. Lake equal a collection of water, impassable. Only air units can pass it. Desert equal a hot plain. Airport equal flat terrain for aircraft, dragons, etc. To land on. The terrain can be dry, with snow, with mud. The terrain greatly modifies the values of the units, mainly movement, attack, defense, initiative, profile, vision, etc. Units. Asterisk infantry, the basic core of every army. Asterisk archery, units with bow and arrow, capable of attacking from a distance. Asterisk artillery, attacking from a distance using catapults, trebuchets, ballistas. Asterisk infantry assault tank, IAT, a combination of artillery and archery, something like a light artillery. In People's General it would be the anti-tank, combined with an anti-aircraft. Asterisk scouts, a very fast vehicle with weak armor. Asterisk cavalry, a medium vehicle with medium armor. Asterisk tanks, a slow-moving, heavily armored vehicle. Asterisk aviation, these would be the sky hunters of general fantasy, basically dragons, griffins, and so on. Asterisk bombers, these would be aircraft capable of attacking the ground from the air. Asterisk hero, this would be the equivalent of the king in chess. If he is eliminated, the game is lost. Usually, it is an infantry unit, or an archery unit, or a cavalry unit. There would be the game map, which focuses on a particular sector of the large board. And in turn, there would be the strategic map where everything is seen in full. Here, on this full map, you could use symbols. On the strategic map, where you can see everything in full, each symbol would represent its type of unit, like this. Circle archery, square infantry, triangle cavalry, cone scouts, rhombus tanks, rectangle assault tank infantry, open toroid artillery, oval aviation, cylinder bomber, star the hero, which represents the king in chess. If you lose the game. Unit values, 21 are counted for the moment. Strength, the number of troops that make up the unit. Usually, this number would be located at 10 and decreases as it loses life. If it reaches 0, the unit dies. Attack, the unit's attack points, in the original Panzer were between 1 and 10, now it would have to be 2 digits, between 01 and 99, for greater precision when calculating. Defense, protection against enemy attacks. Again, it is better to use two-digit numbers, between 01 and 99 for better precision. Indirect defense, it's protection against distance attacks, not adjacent, but being bombed from several hexagons away. It would be defense against artillery. Air defense, it's protection against air attacks, both from aircraft and bombers. Defense against melee attacks, protection against melee attacks. Vision, the range of how many hexagons it can see around. Obviously, factors such as flat terrain and daylight affect these values. Profile, its detection by enemy units. Values around 0, no detection by the rival, up to 9 it is visible from very far away. Ammunition, the amount of ammunition it can carry. If it uses a sword, it is understood that it does not need supplies as if it used a bow and the arrows will run out. This value could be 2 digits, 99 for melee units, for hitting. Values around 9 for ranged units for shooting. In a scenario, the melee units would consume this ammunition, but they would never run out before the end of the scenario, due to the high number. This is what would happen with shooting units, as they would quickly run out of ammunition. To make no confusion in calculating range, the range of their attack. Melee units, sword and shield units, can only attack the adjacent hexagon. Catapult units have several hexagons of range. Melee attack, only for archery units, their attack against melee units that attack them with melee combat. Air attack, attack against air units. In parentheses, they can attack while defending themselves, but not attack by attacking. Movement, how many hexagons the unit can move, taking into account that it is on a flat road. The terrain modifies the value, that is to say, values between 1 and 9. Type of movement, if it is on foot, or if it is on wheels, or if it is winged, or if it is floating, etc. The terrain would modify this type of movement. Initiative, how quickly you can start an attack. Fuel/food, movement costs energy, this is consumed. Cost, the value of the unit in gold coins. Similar to credits in the original Panzer General. In Fantasy General this value was kept in gold coins. 3-digit value. From 010 to 999. Experience, your combat experience. 3-digit value, from 000 to 999. This affects the calculation when making the accounts of engagements against enemy units. Number of attacks, this is similar to Panzer General 3D Scorched Earth, in that there was a star rating system for how many times, per turn, a unit could move/attack. Number of movements, now it would be similar. It is the maximum amount that you can move and slash or attack in a turn. Stars, is the number of actions that the unit has per turn. It would be copied from the Panzer General 3D Scorched Earth. Only difference, that here, the maximum limit would be 6 stars and not 10. Up to here there are 21 values, we will have to see if new ones can be incorporated, or if the values have to be reduced to speed up the calculations of the game. but apparently, these values would be fine. Actions. They would be the stars of the unit's values, the actions to be carried out in each turn. This would be taken from the Panzer General 3D Scorched Earth, with a very good handling of everything. I remember Panzer General 1, the original from 1994, in which each unit could only move and attack, and that was it. With the situation getting bogged down, if new enemy units were seen across the map. But the units that had moved, had already moved, and they stayed that way until the next turn. Panzer General 3D Scorched Earth came to change all this with the action system, stars. Although the maximum limit per unit was 10, and it was difficult to achieve that an unit had all its stars to use all its actions to the full. My recommendation for this new game to be programmed is that the limit be 6 stars, actions. Every unit would start with the 2 basic ones, which would barely be enough to move and attack. And as the unit gained experience, it would gain stars, actions, up to the maximum limit of 6. Obviously, there would be certain medals as awards for the unit's value, which would make it receive free actions. For example, +1 in vision, instead of having to activate the star action, to watch and observe. +1 in movement, which would allow saving an action to spend it on another action to perform. Protection, fortifying itself when making the last movements. Staying where it is, but strengthening itself in that hexagon square. Etc. The programmers would add other medals. But in the end the concept is understood. The minimum amount of actions that a unit receives at the beginning is 2, it is barely enough to move and attack. The maximum amount of actions to be performed by a unit would be 6, unlike the Panzer General 3, which were 10. And some awards, medals, consist of this saving of stars actions, to be used in other tasks. Which ultimately, would lengthen the final result, from 6, to many more, 7 or 8, or even more. It depends on how the game is programmed. But it is understood, 6 actions is the total, and with the supplementary awards, it would extend to 8 or more. Although only 6 are marked. The others come by themselves as awards to the particular unit. I also liked the attachment system of the People's General. For example, adding an anti-tank to the unit to increase its firepower by +4. Here something similar could be done, if not 2 attachments, at least 1, this would have to be analyzed with the game's beta testers. Although I propose that this attachment is not only a virtue, but can also be a defect. For example, adding an infantry assault tank T anti-tank with anti-aircraft, to a scout to increase its anti-aircraft protection. This would not only increase the air defense/air attack value, but also, since it is a wheeled vehicle and has to accompany the rest of the unit, this would make it slow down, so as not to lose pace, which would make it slower. The concept is understood, it would be like a Roman scale in which one value is increased and the other is decreased. In mathematics, this is known as inversely proportional. The stars/actions would be symbols. For example, the skeleton's side would be skulls. The orc's side could be 2 intertwined axes. Another side could use yellow stars, another use blue stars, etc. It is understood that these would be the symbols of the actions to be carried out. Every unit starts with 2 actions, the minimum necessary, which would be enough to move and attack, or move twice or attack twice. And then, as it gains experience, its actions would be increased, until reaching 6, the limit. Although certain metals, for value in battle, would increase these actions, free of charge. For example, a metal that would allow you to advance 1 more hex, or that had an extra shot, or that could cross a river without penalty in movement, etc. The conquest of active hexes that grant prizes to the unit that occupies them. These hexagons would be citadels, castles, fortresses, ruins, caves, etc. They give a reward for occupying them, either rewarding the unit that is on the hexagon, or more gold for the general, the player, who commands the army, or more stars, actions, to distribute among the units that make up that army. Stars/actions would also be awarded between scenarios during a campaign. In the Panzer General 3D Scorched Earth, the actions were divided into 2 groups. Regular orders that were common to all types of units, such as moving, attacking, reloading, arrows, ammunition, energy, fuel, etc. Repairing, returning to the 10 hit points with which a unit starts. And then there were the exclusive orders, specific to the unit in question, for example, for infantry, camouflage, ambush, assault the position, fortify, etc. For artillery, position the cannon, to shoot as needed and within range. For tanks, patrol, attack in a stab, fortify the chassis, etc. For aviation, patrol. We would have to see how everything would work out for these mythological units, but basically there would be orders in common agreement for any unit. And then the exclusive orders for the unit in question, so artillery cannot go on patrol, because this would correspond to infantry, etc. There would be 4 common to all units, and 4 exclusive to the specific unit in question. The units: *infantry, patrolling; *archery; *artillery, preparation, to be ready to fire; *IAT, can attack only once during the player's turn, acts defensively protecting all units within its defensive umbrella during the opponent's turn; *scouts, camouflage, retrograde, retreats if attacked; forward observer, grants more attack points to the artillery that uses it as an observation pivot, patrol; *cavalry, blitz, if it destroys an enemy unit, it gains a free action to use it, as it wishes at the end of that turn; *tanks; *aviation, eagle eye, you have a range of vision, but when this action is activated, the enemy's profile is increased, making it more visible; *bombers. Clarifications: Vigilante can counterattack in the opponent's turn. Vigia can counterattack in your own turn. Special awards: Asterisk infantry. Asterisk archery, vigilant overwatch, defends own units within range during the opponent's turn. Asterisk artillery, vigilant. Asterisk IAT. Lookout, can attack 2 or more times in the player's turn. Asterisk scouts, patrol, +1 in observation. Asterisk cavalry, blitz, if an enemy unit is destroyed, it gains a free action to use as it wishes at the end of that turn. Asterisk tanks. Asterisk aviation, eagle eye, you have a vision range, but when this action is activated, the enemy's profile is increased, making them more visible. Asterisk bombers. Asterisk hero, fortifies themselves. Actions. Common. Move. Attack. Reload. Repair. Special. Patrol equal +1 in vision range. Eagle eye equal +2 in the profile of the rival units. The vision hexes would not be increased, as in patrol, but the rival's profile, instead of being a question mark, now you can see better. Vigilant equal can counterattack in the rival's turn. Watchman equal can counterattack in your own turn. Blitz equal if you destroy an enemy unit, you gain a free action to use it as you want for the end of that turn. Fortify equal +3 in defense points, direct, indirect, air, etc. Camouflage equal your profile decreases. At 0 it is practically invisible, at 9 it is a flaming tree that can be seen from far away. Retrograde equal if attacked, it retreats to safety. Observer equal grants extra points to artillery when using it as a precision firing pivot. Aimed equal higher attack points. Careful attack equal higher air attack points. Escort equal protects units close to it. Fly in the clouds equal hides in the air. Ground support equal can attack rival units that pass below it, only bombers can have this action. Then there are special characteristics, they are the equal. Attributes, this depends on the specific unit, for example a sapper engineer, a commando group, etc. Engineer equal displays a submenu of what to do. Build a bridge over a river, build a road, make a minefield, traps, an airport, a bunker, etc. Light infantry equal the unit ignores enemy control zones, which allows it to infiltrate without receiving counterattacks. Shield equal automatically fortifies itself when making the last of its movements. Fury equal does not need to consume actions to attack, but does spend slots on its maximum attacks per turn that it can make. Saves actions, but has the limit of the unit in question. Runner equal does not need to consume actions to move, but does spend slots on its maximum movements per turn that it can make. Parkour equal difficult terrain is treated as normal terrain for its movements. Response equal, only for artillery, can counterattack in response to an enemy artillery attack. Street Fighter equal this unit receives higher attack/defense points when it is inside a city hex. Paratrooper equal this unit can perform a parachute jump, if it starts from a friendly airport. It is understood that it would be translated to mythological fantasy, for example it could be a transport by airship to the selected hex. River assault equal it can move and slash or attack from water hexes, as if it were flat and normal terrain. Bridged equal this unit acts as a bridge for other units, if it is positioned on a water hex or an abyss. Resilience equal it gains more experience points when facing other enemy units. Its measurement is higher than normal. Hydrophobia equal a negative attribute, it cannot pass through river hexes. For example, a fire elemental. Perception equal can detect ambushes and neutralize them. Aggressive maneuver equal can move one hex further. It is understood that the programmers would add many more attributes to all units. Equipment. In the People's General there were attachments, which were an addition to the unit, to improve it. So for example, a horse increased vision by +1, a small truck added +3 supplies, an anti-aircraft increased the air defense of the own unit by +2. A helicopter increased vision by +1 and attack by +2, an anti-tank gave +4 hard attack against armored targets. A forward observer gave a +4 to artillery shots, using that unit as a lookout, pivot point type support. A bridge, to be able to cross rivers, special ammunition, which gave +2 attack, a combat engineer who gave +2 defense, etc. In the People's General, up to 2 attachments could be added to each unit. Now in this new game, at least, you can only add 1 piece of equipment. Although the beta testers would evaluate everything and see if it is better to increase it to 2, or even up to 3 pieces of equipment per unit. Although it would be balanced, for example, to add an archer to the cavalry to protect it from the aggression of the aviation, dragons and others. This in turn would make its speed decrease, since they all have to stay together as a unit, occupying the same hexagon. And so on, but obviously not with everything. Forward observer does not seem to take anything away from the unit that has it as equipment. And if it is within range of the artillery, it would increase its damage points against rival units. A possible solution would be for a unit to be born with only 2 actions. This way, you would progress by gaining experience in battles. When you reach 4 stars, actions, you can add 1 equipment. When you reach 5 actions, you can add 2 pieces of equipment. And when you reach 6 actions, you can add 3 pieces of equipment. We'll have to see how it all turns out. Obviously, a unit is not obliged to have equipment attached to it. But the fact that it has it would increase its value in one thing, and decrease it in another. And also, the equipment has a cost in gold coins, as it did with the original People's General. Medals. As in all the Panzer General series, units receive awards. As in Panzer General 3D Scorched Earth, there would be 2 medals. The first, depending on the type of unit, is manifested in the main special action. The elite star, of the unit itself. This primary action is naturalized. The second, would be a randomly selected skill. The special skill medal, depending on the unit, would be the 3rd veteran order, the 6th star, which would be naturalized. Thus, infantry, patrol/camouflage/assault, sixth order, which would be naturalized as a unit award, medal. Archery, ambush slash. Artillery. IAT. Camouflage slash ambush slash lookout, naturalized order, i.e. equal can attack multiple times on its own turn, not just once. Scouts, camouflage slash retrograde slash spotter. Cavalry, slash blitz. Tanks, slash blitz. Aircraft, patrol slash fly high slash eagle eye. Bombers, fly in the clouds slash ground support. Hero, fortifies itself slash. Unit awards. Experience, in combat, this increases other values, such as attack slash defense slash initiative points, when calculating against other rival units. Stars, actions, to perform more actions per turn. This is similar to the 3D Panzer General Scorched Earth. Leader skill, this would be the sixth, and last, naturalized action, this depends on the type of unit. Honor Medal, a randomly chosen award. It would be a second medal, the first to win has to be the leader skill, then, yes, this one comes, which is chosen randomly. Key hexagons, when occupied, citadels, fortresses, towns, caves, ruins, airports, this gives the unit that is positioned on top a prize. Attributes, is a natural action, which does not consume energy. Equipment, is equipment that is attached to the unit to improve it. This is taken from the People's General, and you have to pay to have this attachment. Prizes between scenarios, in campaign, and between scenarios, a unit can receive stars/actions, just like in the Panzer General 3D Scorched Earth. Key hexagons. They would be citadels, towns, castles, fortresses, ruins, caves, airports, etc. These give prizes, such as for the unit that occupies them. * more experience points for the unit that occupies them. * win a medal of the unit. * medals. * win an action. For the general, the player. * more gold. * actions, to distribute between campaigns. * another unit, chosen at random, and in gratitude from the villagers for having been freed. * key information to make improvements in technology. The programmers would add more prizes. Movement actions. The movement of the units would be similar to that of the Panzer General 3D Scorched Earth, in that it is reduced by 1 for each movement in the same turn. Thus, for example, a land unit that moves 5 hexagons, road, and the maximum movements are 3. Then it would be, always going by road, the best of the hexagons, equal 5 to the first action star movement, 4 to the second action star, and 3 to the third and last action star. Since it has a maximum limit of 3 movements per turn, it cannot move any further. And everything would be made up of, always taking into account that it moved along a road without leaving it. In the first movement, it traveled 5 hexagons of road. In the second movement, it made 4. In the third and last move, it made 3. In total, it moved 12 hexagons, always going along roads. And in the same turn. Obviously, other units may have other movements, and the maximum allowed per turn may be of another value other than 3. In addition, the terrain affects it quite a bit. In this case, a road is the best for transit, but a hill, a swamp, would not be. And the number of hexagons to move through would be penalized. Air units would fly at an average height of 50 meters, practically the same as a hexagon from the ground. Some have their claws to attack, they would be melee units with direct hits. Although other air units could be ranged shooting units, using flames, etc. Ground melee units cannot attack air units, although in certain cases they can defend themselves by counterattacking. Ranged ground shooting units can attack air units. This would be one of the main differences between infantry units, armed with swords, axes, and shields, and archery units, armed with bows and arrows, crossbows, etc. If they attack air units, their range is reduced by -1. For example, an archer with a range of 3 hexagons, if he attacks other units on the ground, is reduced to 2, 3 to 1, if he wants to attack air units. The same can be said of artillery, which is reduced to -1 for attacking air units. For example, a rocket launcher, that can shoot at 6 hexagons of opposing units on the ground. Its maximum range for attacking air units would be 5, 6 to 1. Some final clarifications to resolve any doubts that may have left. A hexagon would represent a terrain of about 40 to 50 meters on each side. The units with shooting can reach further. For example, archers can shoot up to 2 hexagons away. The catapults up to 6. The bomber can only attack square 0, that is, the one it is flying over. The artillery would be a shooting unit at several squares away, up to 6 in some cases. The infantry assault tank, IAT, infantry assault tank units would be like light artillery, which shoots at a few hexagons away, 1, 2, 3 at most. To give you an idea, an archer would be infantry with a bow and arrow. A infantry assault tank, IAT, would be a vehicle, type wagon, with a large ballista, but that would shoot up to 3 squares away at most. It would be as if in the People's General an anti-tank was combined with an anti-aircraft, resulting in a new type of unit, such as the real-life Russian BMP Terminator vehicle, which combines these two functions at the same time, and in a single vehicle. Only now in this game, it would be based on fantasy, with mythological units. The infantry would all be melee units, that is, using swords, axes, spears, pikes, maces, etc. The archery would all be ranged shooting units, that is, using bows and arrows, crossbows, javelins, etc. The infantry assault tank, it would be like a vehicle combining anti-aircraft and anti-tank, as could be the real-life Russian BMP Terminator vehicle, only now adapted as a mythological unit. The cavalry would be divided into 3 branches. The scouts, which are fast units with weak shields, more for exploration, more than anything. The cavalry itself, which would be medium speed and medium shield. And the tanks, which would be a very heavy and slow cavalry, but on the other hand very fortified, for example, a stone golem that moves slowly. The aviation would be the sky hunters of general fantasy, that is, dragons, glyphs, griffins, pegasi, etc. Bombers would be aircraft that can only attack the ground, that is, the hexagon 0, over which they are flying, and if there is an enemy unit below them. Archery would be people, infantry assault vehicles, infantry assault tank, IAT, would be vehicles, and artillery would be like IAT weapons. But with a much longer range, with other functions. In short, the three groups would have different characteristics. To simplify it this way it is understood. Archery would be a person with a bow and arrow, infantry assault tank, IAT. Would be a cart wagon with a large crossbow. Of medium range, 1, 2, 3 hexagons around at most. An artillery would be a giant ballista, with a range of about 300 meters, approximately 5, 6 hexagons. Although there may be artillery with a longer range, reaching 7, 8 hexagons, this would be analyzed by the programmers and beta testers. For example, in real life, it would be as if the artillery was a soldier carrying an assault rifle with a 7.62 caliber, the normal standard for bullets. The infantry assault tank, IAT, was a Bren carrier, a British vehicle from World War II, armed with several 12.5 machine guns. To be used as anti-aircraft and anti-tank at the same time. And the artillery would be 150 mm. That is, between these three types of units, the caliber of the weapons is different, as is their locomotion, their movement, and some other variables. For example, defense against indirect and direct attacks, their visibility, their camouflage profile, etc. Archery could attack air units by placing themselves just below, that is, in the same hexagonal square that this air unit occupies. The infantry assault tank, IAT, could attack air units from the adjacent square. That is, it would be range +2 to attack enemy units on the ground, and range +1 to attack enemy air units. Artillery would also be like this. It is as if -1 were subtracted from the range to attack enemy air units, since these would be flying. Archery, IAT. Infantry assault tank, and artillery would be ranged weapons, and yet, they would be divided into three types. Something similar would occur with cavalry, which would also be divided into three types. So scouts, fast and with weak armor, can attack from a distance using bows and arrows. The cavalry, of medium speed and medium armor, which has both types of attack, although more focused on melee attack, of direct aggression. And the tanks, of slow speed and high armor, which even so would not be invulnerable, only that they have greater protection and weight than the others, nothing more. During the player's turn, the artillery can move and attack several times. The archery can also move and attack several times, although a much smaller range, it is understood. and the Infantry Assault Tank, IAT. Machine Infantry Assault Tank can move several times and attack, but only once per turn. During the opponent's turn, this unit would go on the defensive, protecting from attack by supporting any allied unit that was close and in counter-attack range. That is to say that Infantry Assault Tank, IAT. It would be like an anti-tank and anti-aircraft all in one, and performing support tasks for nearby units, as a defender. This would be another of the differences between these three types of units, not only the caliber of the weapon and its range, but also its functions within the turns. Here you can see a video that I made with Blender. You can see a couple of infantrymen, and an archer. Obviously, there would be a dozen models of each type of unit, all different from each other. In fact, the skeletons also have their counterpart made of bones, etc. This video is to explain and understand the basic concepts. But basically, there would be like a dozen or more models of each particular unit. Then you see different types of artillery, starting with all kinds of catapults, and also rocket launchers, which would ultimately be artillery. Then comes what would be an infantry assault tank, IAT. Infantry assault vehicle. Infanterie fighting vehicle IFV transport troops. Infantry assault tank IAT mixture between tank and IF-T transport troops. In real life, it would be the Russian BMP Terminator, or the Israeli Nag Macon, or the British Mantis, which are not tanks, because they do not have a large caliber cannon. But they are not IFV. Infantry fighting combat vehicle either, because they do not transport troops. But it would be a mixture of both, something like a light tank, with several machine guns. And that fulfills anti-tank and anti-air protection functions. When passing it to the mythological realm, this type of units emerge. Like a giant scorpion that carries a ballista on its back. In the game, it would be to protect its own units that are within the defensive umbrella, the radius of action of the infantry assault tank, IAT. If this unit were attacked by another rival, and an infantry assault tank, IAT, were close, and in range of action, it would counterattack protecting its ally. This infantry assault tank, IAT, unit seems weak against melee attacks, direct hits against enemy units. And its ballista would allow it to attack in a range of 2-3 hexagons around, which would become its defensive umbrella. There you can see that the function of these infantry assault tank units would be to protect their own units, mainly during the opponent's turn. In Panzer General 3D Scorched Earth, this would be the vigilant overwatch virtue applicable to anti-tanks, which attack enemy units within range of action, and if these attack their own units, or even anti-aircraft artillery, which also forms a protective shield and attacks any air unit that is within range of fire, and which leads an attack against their own units, during the turn of that same opponent. Now in this game, infantry assault tanks, or IAT, would be a mixture of an anti-tank and an anti-aircraft, performing protection functions, mainly during the opponent's turn. Although they can move in their own turn, They can only attack once in their own turn. But when they reach 6 action stars, the limit, they can activate the watch ability, which, by consuming an action, can attack several times in that turn. And obviously, the medal award for Infantry Assault Tank, IAT, units would be to have this watch ability activated all the time. All of this that was explained makes sense. Infantry assault tanks are there to protect their own units. But if their crews acquire enough experience, they would be alert and attentive to lead an attack at the slightest opportunity. What in the game is translated as Overwatch attitudes, of protecting their own units during the opponent's turn. With a veteran and expert crew, you can break out of the mold by attacking on your own turn. During your turn. Then come scout vehicles. In the video you can see some from modern times, like all-terrain trucks. But basically, any light cavalry that can move quickly, and whose riders use shooting weapons like crossbows or bows and arrows, would be fine. Then come cavalry. Here, yes, they are more solid than the previous ones, withstanding more damage, and with harder weapons that hit hard. Then come tanks, which are now vehicles, giant carts, wagons, something much more solid than the previous ones, also heavy and slow moving, and with powerful weapons, like a flamethrower. Here the programmers and other beta testers of the game have to decide whether cavalry and tanks are two separate and distinct types of units, or if they should be grouped into the same unit type. In my opinion, they would be two different ones, due to protection, weapons, speed. It seems that they are two completely different units from each other. Also, with the scouts, they would form 3 armed branches: soft armor and very fast speed, medium armor and medium speed, high armor and very low speed. It seems that there would be 3 branches: scouts, cavalry, and tanks. This would be decided by the programmers and other people who collaborate in the creation of the game, beta testers, and so on. Or it could also be that cavalry would be melee units, using swords, spears, etc. And tanks could be ranged units, using flamethrowers, harpoons, ballistas, etc. This differentiation seems interesting. Then comes aviation, the sky hunters of the original Fantasy General, or sky hunters, which would ultimately be aviation. You can see from the modeling that it would be in the air, but to avoid confusion about which hex it is in, there would be a circular shadow to indicate which hex it would be standing on. Even if it is flying, of course. As for aviation, there would be everything that was mythological: dragons, griffins, pegasi, and along etc. Obviously, there would be more than 15 models. Lastly, there would be the bombers. Here too, with all kinds of models, mainly dirigibles. Although there could be dragons that attack land exclusively, being bombers but not sky hunters. This video is to give you an idea of how things are. Obviously, there would be more than 15 models for each unit, being more than 100 models in total. What is the profile and what is the detection? Important clarifications. The profile is similar to what happened in the People's General video game. When an enemy unit was spotted, the question mark was put on it. That there was something there, but it was not known what. But it is something rival, that is certain. As more data is obtained, the question mark would become a diffuse shadow, possibly a 3D representation of the unit symbol. Circle for archery, square for infantry, triangle for cavalry, etc. If there is more data, there you can see the unit, in its shape and color, but no more. And if there is more data, then the complete data, how much life it has left, and so on. In other words, there would be 4 values. First question mark. There is something there, an enemy unit for sure. Second, 3-dimensional shadow of the type of unit, triangle cavalry, cone scouts, etc. Third, a representation of the unit, its 3D shape but in grayish. Fourth, now all the complete data of the unit, in the color of the rival, its status, and other information. This would be the best, as detailed as possible. The patrol action increases the vision range of the unit by +1, the hexagon of vision is increased by +1. The eagle eye action increases the profile of the rival units that are seen by +2. The vision hexagons would not be increased, as in patrol, but the profile of the rival, instead of being a question mark, now it can be seen better. So for example, from this level 1, what would be a question mark, of what something is in that hexagon, would become its 3D form, but without data. If it were at level 2, of the 3D shadow of the unit type, for example rectangle equal infantry assault tank, IAT. It would now go to level 4, with all its data visible. It is understood that if an opponent is already visible at level 4, it can no longer scale further in visibility. A unit's profile is its camouflage. So 0 would be practically invisible, you would have to be adjacent to this unit to be able to see it. For example, profile 0 would be spy shadows, volumetric shadows in 3D. 9 would be a flaming tree, all on fire and visible from far away. Not only the top, but it would also emit its light. Although generally, most units would be around 5 profile points, especially the largest ones that can reach 8. Small units, Special Forces Commando type, would be around 2 profile points. What is the detection of rival units? That is what has 4 level states. Asterisk question mark. Asterisk 3-dimensional shadow of the unit type. Asterisk representation of the unit. Asterisk complete data of the unit. I put a concrete example so that it is understood. In this other video that I created using Blender, you can see this explanation about profile and about detection. A friendly unit goes down a road, and detects in a forest 3 hexagons away, that there is something. It is not known what it is, but there is a rival unit there, it is certain. That is why it is marked on the map with a question mark. Assuming that another unit is sent in the vicinity, let's say 3 hexes away. With this rival unit between the first and the latter. And the eagle eye function is activated to increase the profile of rival units. There you can see that from this interrogation, it would become a geometric square shape, that it is an infantry unit. Sending another unit closer to continue exploring. You can see on the map that it is a representation of a unit, a darkened humanoid shape with the rival flag. When sending another unit, even closer, almost adjacent, and having been surrounded on all sides. Looking for as much information as possible about this sighting. It turned out to be a shadow unit. The spies, belonging to the rival army, with a profile of 0. But which was systematically surrounded by its own units. All possible information was extracted from it from all available angles. And thus military intelligence detected the type of rival unit that it was. Now in this darkened humanoid form, which could be anything, but which carried the rival's flag. It would now become the 3D model of the spy shadow unit, and all its data would be complete. Its damage, its remaining life points, etc. The profile is the camouflage of the unit, in values ranging from 0, invisible, to 9, the greatest possible visibility and from the greatest available range. The detection is what would be divided into 4 states, and the profile of the unit greatly influences it. The mere fact that something was detected would be marked with a question mark. It could be a unit with an 8-point profile, and it could be seen from 10 hexagons away. Or it could be a unit with a 1-point profile, being a group of special forces that detected it from 2 hexagons away. By having more eyes observing that hexagon on the map, more data is obtained. The profile continues to be an influential value, but by having more witnesses, the detection would increase. Here is the video from another angle, to better understand. A friendly unit is going down a road, and detects in a forest 3 hexagons away, that there is something. It is not known what it is, but it is certain that there is a rival unit there. That is why it is marked with a question mark on the map. Assuming that another unit is sent to the vicinity, let's say 3 more hexagons away. With this rival unit being between the first and the last. This is to increase the profile of rival units. There you can see that from this question, it would become a geometric square shape, because it is an infantry unit. Sending another unit closer to continue exploring, now 2 squares away from this forest. You can see on the map that it is a representation of a unit, a darkened humanoid shape with the rival's flag. By sending another unit, even closer, being adjacent, touched by a hex edge, and having been surrounded on all sides. Looking for as much information as possible about this sighting. It turned out to be a unit of double-axe wolfers, belonging to the rival army, with profile 2. But being systematically surrounded by its own units. All possible information was extracted from it from all available angles. And thus military intelligence detected the type of rival unit it was. Now in this obscured humanoid form, that it could be anything, but that it carried the rival flag. It would now become the 3D model of the double-axe wolfer unit, and all its data would be complete. Its damage, the life points it has left, etc. Other strategic considerations about the maps themselves equal. Airports are extremely important for maintaining air units. Although translated into mythological terms, it is a nest of dragons or something similar, but the concept is understood. A special hexagon for air units where they can refuel and replenish their weapons. I remember Panzer General 1, the first of the saga, which had something strategically fundamental like airports. Airplanes, fighters, and bombers had to refuel and replenish their weapons. And the strategic feeling was noticeable, they could not be flying all the time with unlimited weapons. Their need was felt to be lacking when the time came. Although there was the option of off-fuel, which allowed the planes to fly indefinitely. Strategically it was a fiasco. Since the player was forced to conquer the airports to extend the range of action of his aircraft. I noticed this in Panzer General 2, from 1997, when they removed the fuel, and it felt strategic. The ships could fly all the time without needing to reload. The player did not have the imperative need to conquer the airport hexagons, since the aircraft flew indefinitely. This was a very serious mistake by the programmers of Panzer General 2. In this new game, air units can only be summoned from airport hexes and around the airport. There would be 7 hexes, the airport and the other 6 that surround it. Each map must have no less than 3 airports, and even better if there are more. And with the option of the sapper engineer, who can build more in any hex on the map, preferably on plain hexes. And strategically speaking, the possession of airports is essential to have aviation, be they sky hunters, or bombers. And thus spread across the map, relying on an air force. When fuel and weapons are running out, they have no other choice but to go to the airports to recharge. This would force the player to focus on conquering airports, whether they are empty, or occupied by rival troops, having to reconquer them. Or failing that, use engineer units to build other airports in a hexagon, plain area of the map. An engineer sapper unit would take 2 turns to build an airport, and it has to be on a plain hexagon. Here are some other images that I created with Blender. Now I can better explain the maps and the layout of the command headquarters for both groups. Since they are parallel, horizontal, the map is traversed from one end to the other. This is like Panzer General 1, in which most of the maps were like this, going from one end to the other. Since the headquarters are diagonal, the entire map is traversed, almost without leaving spaces. And the clash area between both armies is very wide. This is like Panzer General 3D Scorched Earth. Since they are parallel, vertically, the journey takes less time, leaving a lot of empty space on the sides. Although the clash area between both armies is wider than with the diagonal headquarters. The journey is fast, in a few turns, but there is a lot of empty space on the sides. Therefore, the best layout is with the main headquarters facing each other diagonally. A wide area of the map is covered, with a wide area of contact and clash between the forces, almost leaving no empty spaces. In Panzer General 1, there were different map sizes. There were the small ones, more like tutorials for those who were starting out in the game. And there were the very large ones, already forming part of the main campaign. Now, in this new game, all the maps would be 100 hexagons long, on the x-axis, by 80 hexagons high, on the y-axis. Anything, if you have to create small maps, for tutorials, and so on. These same measurements would be used, but covered with mountains, volcanoes, abysms, etc. To reduce the map to the smallest possible size, with the units that have to travel through it. The outer, peripheral parts would have these volcano hexagons that do not allow units, whether land or air, to travel through it. This would reduce the map, which would continue to be the standard, but now small to make tutorials for those who are starting out in the game. To finish, I hope that these recommendations in this Utopia are of some use. Even if it were to create a new game based on the Second World War, which is already very well worn, used so many times in so many products. But at least something is something. Although I would like more that everything goes for the fantasy option with mythology at the forefront. It is understood that making a wargame with a board and pieces would be impossible, due to the large number of values for each unit, at least 21. It would be difficult and boring to have to do all these accounts, with all these calculations. Only the computer could manage a wargame of this style, that is why it would be a video game, and not a tabletop game. I will leave for download on Google Drive the images that I created of the hexagonal map, of 100 hex on the x-axis and about 80 hex on the y-axis. They are black and white images, and I hope they are of some use. As I understand it, from the little programming that I know, this is used in some way to program a video game. In infographic programs, like Blender, I know that they are used to recreate maps. And I hope that they also serve to recreate the map editor, so that users can create new maps, thus enlarging and beautifying the new game. I will also leave this same paper for download, these theoretical writings, both in Spanish and English. And I hope that it is useful, in case the video was not explanatory enough. Now the writings would be in PDF. Please send this video if you know a programmer. Or if you know other gamers who like turn-based games with a fantasy wargame theme. So that together we can shape this ideal wargame video game project Utopia, and that it can be transferred to real life. Some last-minute clarifications that came up while I was editing the video. Asterisk artillery can shoot at any hex, always within firing range, including empty hexes. Or hexes where enemy units are suspected to be hidden, or hexes with buildings like bridges to destroy them, etc. Asterisk certain units can perform special actions, for example, engineers, who can build on a hex, such as bridges, roads, air bases, etc., or even destroy them. Slingers, who, like harassers, have the ability to flee if they are attacked, but only once per turn. Something like retrograde. Archers, who have the lookout ability to protect friendly units within firing range, if they are attacked by the rival, etc., the programmers will know how to continue everything. Basically, the unit type is not a rigid structure, but there can be variations. Such as the slingers, who have retrograde like the scouts. Or the archers, who have the lookout function like the IAT. The height of the terrain has a lot of influence. It is not the same to shoot from flat and level terrain, than to do it from a high hill. That is why it will be necessary to evaluate what type of map to use, if a 2D drawing, or a 3D three-dimensionality. But making maps like this is already expensive, but it is preferable like this. I take as an example the excellent Panzer General 3D. Anything else, the users would collaborate to beautify the game, by having a map editor to create new ones. It would be good to implement a mods system so that, by changing some files, the units and the maps themselves are modified. For example, going from a fantasy theme to the Second World War, or the First World War, or any other. The concept is understood. You change some system files in the game directory, and you have a similar game, but with a different theme. Making this long video took me a lot of time, at least 4 months since I started writing the script. Correcting it, researching, getting photos and videos to document myself, editing the video using Blender, and so on. Please appreciate my enormous work by liking and subscribing to my channel. After all, I make videos with useful information for everyone. Thank you very much in advance. Greetings to all. Until the next video.